So we're on our way to a rammed earth house. It is Boxing Day, and as most people are probably shopping for, I don't know, crazy electronics, we are shopping for housing. Not to buy the house, but just to see what kind of look we could potentially adopt for our community center, kind of learning center at Valhalla. So today we're going with our architect. I've got Germ here with me behind the camera, and we're going to visit a rammed earth house in Hudson, which is just outside of Montreal. You know, we're going to take you on the journey. We're going to show you all the steps that we are going through to making this Earthship a possibility, because this is, I think this is what the world needs, is that people need to understand the step-by-step process that it takes to make this kind of happen for them.
It's seriously deep. Seriously.
So we're here at a rammed earth house in Quebec, designed by Sudhir, our lead architect on the Valhalla Earthship Community Center build. And he's here to walk us through this house and ask us questions about what we want to implement in our learning center. So we're here with Sudhir, the lead architect on the Valhalla Earthship kind of community center, learning center build. And he's giving us a tour of a rammed earth house that basically you and your team designed.
Yeah. This was conceived in 2005, completed in 2007, really completed in 2008. But there's a lot of firsts in this building, and I thought it'd be interesting for you guys to have a look through it.
Let's talk about what is Valhalla then.
Yeah.
Because who will eventually live in these things?
In this building, or in?
I mean, the big picture. You've got several projects,
Yeah.
here in the United States, wherever.
Absolutely.
So, what is the long term? Who is this? This is, you've mentioned, like, it'll appeal to your mom. It'll appeal to the mayor.
Mm-hmm.
There's a kind of, Mr. and Mrs. Anybody side of this, right?
There is.
But does that mean that for this to work financially, it should cost what Mr. or Mrs. Anybody could pay, or is it less than that?
So here's how I see the project. Mm-hmm. Every project that's going to be Valhalla, whether it's in Montreal or elsewhere in the world, is going to start by having a community-style learning center. This community center is going to bring in people that attract and learn about these types of buildings and these kind of things. Eventually, what I would like to do is appeal to different levels of people. So let's say low income, medium income, high income. Okay, let's just bring it into 3 different types of buildings for now. What I would want to do is say, this is the look of the community center that we've brought in, and this is what we're designing first. It's the flagship, but it's also the flagship of what I would build in Vermont or in Boston or wherever it is. We take this exact style building and bring it and maybe adapt a couple of things that you learned based on building it the first time, and you build it over and over and over again to create a community in an area. Once that area is that community center and kind of is swirling with people and attention and tourism and blah, 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 then you take small structures that we design, future designs, other designs that take, okay, here's simple living. We made simple living, which is kind of like how Earthships did it. They have a simple survival, but they have the 5U Earthship, and then they have the high income one is the Phoenix, for example, this huge thing where you're fishing inside your own living room. Kind of.
Oh my goodness, really?
Right, and now they have this 2-story one. So I can show you pictures of all these things. That's how I think we should do it. It's almost like we're taking Earthships and then recreating it, but taking the same concept and the same thing and then making a new brand out of it. It's not to replace Earthships, it's really to work with Earthships as well. Mm-hmm. And say, hey, you guys have made the standard model, but now we want to take another standard and bring it to another level.
So what does Valhalla add to the Earthship model then? What is it?
I think Valhalla,
what's the value added there? What are you changing?
The main thing we're adding is the community aspects of it and what happens outside of it. Because the building itself is one thing, and Earthships has inspired lots of architecture. It has not inspired, in my opinion, enough community. It's not inspired enough people coming together and saying, hey, we're going to plant a fruit tree there that's going to grow, and we're going to watch it grow because we're going to live right over there in that Earthship or in that eco-sustainable house. That's the whole point. It's like, yeah, we have 60 acres. The goal is not to de-zone all of it and turn all of it into housing and make money and be a real estate developer necessarily. Yes, there will be a real estate component that will help fund the project, and that's why we've de-zoned a certain portion of it. But most of the land is actually going to stay permaculture. most of the land is going to be like a communal space where you walk in and it's like literally Eden. And you're like, wow, like there's food everywhere, there's domes, there's all kinds of places I can go and learn. It's almost like an alternative school. It's everything that you would need to survive within a small group of houses and people. And that's kind of the idea that I see. I think we start with the community center, and that's what we're designing right now. And this is a community center that can be built in numerous places as well, to some degree, but we don't have to consider the technical sides of that. We just need to think of what is the efficient way that we can build something that makes sense from a community kind of standpoint. And then we will eventually come back to you and be like, okay, look, now let's design housing that's slightly different than this. Let's make a basic unit. Great, we'll start with that. We'll build one basic unit first. Okay, then we'll make a medium-sized unit. We'll build one medium-sized. We'll build one of the higher end eventually. And then somebody who comes in, has a piece of land and wants to develop, you walk them through. Okay, here's a community center. This is the, like any rich community has like this little community building where they have a daycare sometimes or whatever it is. It's the same concept, except for you're coming in and saying, okay, well, if you want to build our simple model, our plans are already laid out. All you need here is the plans. You can buy them and you can build this model. You want to build the medium model, our plans are here, blah, blah, blah.
Okay.
So it's kind of being able to recycle those same models.
Yeah.
But for now, what we're starting with is the community.
So early design work will include how buildings sit together, how, what the relationships, the spatial relationships ideally would be.
Yeah.
It might be different for one climate than another, really
Now, luckily,
climates to be closer.
Yeah, absolutely. But luckily in our situation, we have two phases. The first phase is we're building on a 5-acre piece, and this is where this first building is going. So it's not really next to anything. Luckily, there's literally like in every direction. There's no building that will be there.
Yeah.
But on this other piece, there technically is dezoned by the city from a lot number. My father owns this. Has 90 different lots.
Yeah.
So how we do those 90 different lots, or whether somebody has to buy 3 lots to build one kind of these structures is a different story. Maybe we buy, okay, you want the biggest model? Fine, you have to buy 3 lots. You want the medium model? You buy 2 lots. You want the smallest model? You buy 1 lot. But the potential is these 90 lots.
Where I'm going with the master planning thing isn't lot layouts.
Yeah.
It's conceptually how do the buildings face common space.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. And that's, in conventional lot layouts, the common space is the street. And that's our conventional set of relationships. I have the feeling that that's not what you're aiming for.
No.
Right? Relationship to a street. Streets are very efficient.
Yeah.
And they're really interesting. We know how to live with them. We know less how to live with unconventionally formed spaces.
Absolutely.
So there's some work to be done there because how we arrange the houses together will end up influencing a great deal how they're designed.
Yeah.
Because if it becomes really important for Valhalla to have some kind of design around a common space, orientation becomes crazy.
Absolutely.
Right? Passive solar orientation becomes something that you can't establish an ideal model. You then have to start mixing those. And so you start getting versions which are on the west side, on the north side, on the south side, entrances at different points, common space in different, public space in different areas. So we need to get through some of that before we jump into the building.
Sure. I think the base for now is south-facing, more the Earthship type of thing, where Earthships are being built on lots that are ideal. Unfortunately, I agree from a mass scale, eventually you can't have everything south-facing, and it's not going to be feasible. But luckily on our land, the best kind of layout, the way it would work realistically anyway, is that you can have the street run down the middle, and you can literally have lots, the way it's zoned, like kind of set up now, you can easily have like one behind the other, behind the other, behind the other, all of them facing south, which is really interesting. And then you can have like a driveway come in and whatever. In my mind, I have this drawn out. I understand that you have to understand this.
Well, we'll send it, you're going to be around, well, you're not going to be around, you're going to be available.
I will be available.
So we'll start sending you some ideas of what might be possible from a kind of orientation and master planning perspective.
Yeah.
Just so we kind of zoom in quickly on what you think your needs are.
Yeah.
And from that point, I think it would be good to work out some of the big principles of the buildings. Right? Just kind of riff off of the idea of earthships and this kind of reused construction material. certainly for me and for us at Left, we never imagine finishes as a way of giving an aesthetic kind of feel to a thing. It's always the structure of the thing itself. Right?
Absolutely.
It's always the stuff.
Yeah.
So that's what I wanted to talk to you about. I wanted you to come here and see, get a feeling for this thing in the landscape, to have a discussion about the look and feel of the place, and to understand a bit better what you guys thought was, Valhalla. So how do you want to present Valhalla? Because if your first project is what you're going to be presenting as Valhalla, we got to get that right.
I mean, as I said in our previous meeting, the first thing that I have to say is we have to do it right. If it means that the budget is a little bit more, but or it takes more time, or we do it in phases, where it's like, okay, we're going to finish the shell this year, great, we're going to pause, go back for more funding, and continue to make this happen. I'd rather do that than finish or make something that is kind of half of what we need it to be.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I think because this is our first building, we can go about it in two ways. We could have went, okay, we're going to make a small, cheaper building and do that, and then eventually go for the home run. But I think we should go for the home run, and I speak for I think most of us in this, in saying, for example, with the greenhouse, we made it something that was affordable and accessible, right? We use the polycarbonate as opposed to glass, but that doesn't sell my mom. It doesn't sell the mayor. And if we were trying to get something like this dezoned, if we were trying to get all of this land kind of unlocked to be able to do something like this, then we have to make it the home run. Right. And so to me, I wouldn't want to give up any quality in that way. I would want to really kind of slam it out of the park.
Okay.
As for finish, obviously certain aspects of it, we don't have to go crazy necessarily either. Like these look like brand new wood floors. These are, the type of stuff that you have in here, like that big sink over there, is not necessarily where we need to go with it either. I don't need to spend 10 grand on a sink. I don't think we need to go that far, but I do think like this bamboo style desk looks great. There's kind of finish or the wood feel of this place, and the nice windows and the way the sun comes in, that's what we're selling. The feeling of the fact that the floors feel fantastic right now and don't look like concrete, another point. So I think there is a certain level of threshold in terms of finish that we do or should have. I do think we're all very much into the adaptation. We're all very much into kind of taking an Earthship and then moving it to something kind of even bigger and cooler. I think we're going to have easier time raising funds and getting things together if we're going out of the realm of normal as well. If we're making just a standard Earthship, I think people are excited very much, but at the same time, if we're making something that's really like, this is Valhalla, and this is what we want to build, if we go, my dad has land in Vermont, we're talking about doing an expansion there, and we work there. We have land in other places. There's all kinds of potential for even further than just this project. Okay. So I would love a flagship style building that we take and we can replicate numerous areas.
Okay. I wonder if we couldn't just take
Go
a
around.
stroll around and
Sure.
tell me mostly what you feel uncomfortable with.
What
Because
I
so
feel
far
uncomfortable.
your response has been pretty positive, I would say, to what you're looking at.
Yeah.
And when you sent those images of an Earthship that you thought I thought okay, it's really important that you see that.
It's a nice Earthship, right?
Yeah, it's a pretty interesting Earthship. Yeah.
So what do I like about this place?
Well, what's really important for you, and what are the things that make you feel not so comfortable? This is designed for a couple, so I don't expect you to like everything in here.
Definitely, yeah. I love the openness.
Yeah.
First thing I like to say about that, which I also feel that Earthships don't really have.
That's true.
You walk in and you feel closed, and I don't like that. So having maybe the main portion of the building where I was talking about it being square,
This is important.
something like that.
This is important.
Beautiful.
Transfer.
The open, nice transfer space between one section and another section, I like that too.
Good.
So the way that Earthships are set up right now, they don't necessarily always have that connection. Maybe, less tires, more tires in the back, fine, but maybe less closeness here. I like that. Love flooring.
Okay.
the feel of the floor. Maybe we don't have to go with pipes and all that stuff. I understand that brings it to a whole other level, but I do love the wood style floor versus the cold cement floor, which I mentioned before.
Yeah.
This kind of brick or tile or whatever, it's nice too.
This was a greenhouse for them, just to let you know. They had, in the original design, this whole area was closed.
Oh wow.
And it was a greenhouse, and there was more glazing here. But partway through, actually, after we finished the plans, they said, you know what, let's just, and so this was, there's the reason why there's a huge drain in there was because they, you know, we envisioned hoses and all kinds of crazy shit.
Potential, yeah. And that's why there's a sink as well.
And the big sink, but it got transformed just kind of last minute.
Sure.
So and it became, they had, this was full of plants. It was just full of plants, but it was part of their living space. They had some chairs.
I love what they've done in terms of like the design of the bathroom, for example. You know, doing something like this and incorporating things that are actually in nature into the house. You know, even the look of a fireplace or something like that. Like something like that looks okay, but I would maybe go more rock, stone type feel. I've got a potential connection with name of their brand.
Rhinox or Technoblock?
Technoblock.
Yeah.
Okay, for getting a whole bunch of stones and rocks, finishes,
Yeah.
and that kind of stuff,
Yeah,
and they
yeah.
seem like they're willing to sponsor the project or
Cool.
do something with that. So, love wood, love the rock,
Yeah.
love the openness, love the floors. Also, I love the feeling of the floors, but that's another discussion.
Tell me what you mean by that. The feeling of floors.
Well, the feeling, like the warmth of the floors and that kind of stuff. But I also love, like, you know, the soft, like the fact that you can walk with socks. Put it that way.
All right.
It's an interesting way of explaining it, is that you can walk with socks on and then you take your shoes off. I think that's an interesting feel. In terms of the rooms, I mean, it looks great. You know, this room looks fantastic. The bathroom is incredible.
Fun one to do.
You know, I love the fact that you would make a bathroom, but you'd make something with maybe, you know, instead of getting, this looks like it could probably possibly new, but you just find an old recycled.
No, it's an old
bathtub.
recycled
Well, there you go.
one.
So I like the craftsmanship of taking old pieces and putting it together,
All right.
but with the consistency of the walls and the floor all look the same. So if it means that we have to, I don't know, buy even if you buy recycled materials, but you have to buy consistent recycled materials, so be it. But it doesn't have to, you know, it doesn't have, not everything in every single room has to do that.
How do you feel about that?
The trusses?
No, that.
Okay with that.
Ventilation.
Personally, I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was the biggest surprise for, it was in every drawing, of course, for our clients, and then they
saw it.
walked into it. Oh my God, we can't have that. It looks industrial. I feel like I'm in a, right? So there's-
Finishing in that way, like the fact that somebody sees a system is okay with me.
Especially in an educational facility.
Yeah.
That's the whole point. The fact that somebody sees the solar panel, like wire come down, that's okay. Like even if there was a box here, and this was our electrical box, what I would want actually is that somebody can open their electrical box and actually see what it is, how it works. Like have a label that says this switch does this, and like these connect to that. Like that's finishing that we can do eventually. But I don't care that the building itself has the functional things within it, like that.
And what
It
about
is
the
like a
eventual,
machine kind
the
of.
eventual, but in the image of Valhalla, let's say,
Yeah.
right? Not necessarily just the educational facility, but the idea of home,
Yeah.
the idea of dwelling. That also is kind of exposed systems feeling.
Yeah.
Right?
That's the exposed systems kind of feeling is okay because I think it makes you. The idea of Valhalla is to be conscious of what you're doing.
Yeah.
Okay.
I get
It's
it.
the main thing. And so if you're being conscious of what you're doing, when you see it, you're conscious of it generally. Seeing things reminds you to be conscious of it. Oh, by the way, I should check the solar panels. Oh, by the way, I should do this. Oh, by the way, I should change that filter in our water system or whatever it is. I like that. You know, if we have, you know, there's this billboard that we saw that has that generates water from atmospheric water. I love that. If we had a little, you know, they call them. There's a brand that's called Nicolo Blue. You have one of those in the corner. Now that's your water stand, and that's generating the water because it's sucking out some of the humidity, which sometimes is a problem in Earthships. In the Earthship, and it's generating the water out of it. So be it.
Dehumidifier with a filter. That's all it
Basically.
is.
It's literally a dehumidifier with a filter, with a kind of UV filter and reverse osmosis thing. But I'm okay with that. I'm okay with the systems being present within that.
Okay, good.
But I love the openness. That's what, like this is the number one difference between this house and an Earthship is I come in here and I feel open, like I see a nice ceiling and that feel, you know, and that's why
I've never been in an Earthship, but I
Yeah.
have the feeling it's more like that. Is that right? It's
Definitely.
It's like
That-
this part of the building.
exactly.
It's not.
No, it's
Instead of that.
it's the truth. It's the
Okay.
truth, and
Okay.
and it maybe goes a little bit further. Like it's definitely a little deeper than this
Yeah.
in terms of depth.
Yeah, 'cause I saw
Because
that.
you would have the greenhouse. Like so, let's say this is the width of the greenhouse.
Yeah, yeah.
You have this feel to the end of the wall, but the difference is that the window, because it's not
Yeah.
really here, it's there.
It's out, yeah.
It kind of gets darker as you get back. So what I like is, let's say you had a vault over here, or one smaller room there and one smaller room here, but then you had a bigger room like this, goes a little bit higher up, comes in a little bit more, maybe takes the sun from higher like that, or instead of the sun from higher, you put like a geodesic dome on there, but the light comes in and hits the back wall. You know, if you can have light hit the back wall like it does like this, I love that.
Yeah.
Versus an Earthship, you won't have that light like that necessarily.
I think that one of the things to think about with depth is spans, so large spans. So
Yeah.
the deeper you go, the deeper your structural members.
Yeah.
And to create this sort of openness,
Yeah.
something like this, it's either happening in a hidden way or in an exposed way.
Yeah.
Something structural like this is going on somewhere.
That's fine.
So otherwise, these things here
Yeah.
become quite large to span all the way to there, right? And the reason why they're this size
Yeah.
is because they reach a ridge beam, and so
And that ridge beam.
and the ridge beam is carried to here, and this is transferred and caught by rammed earth there and concrete at the back.
Absolutely.
So
Structurally, if this something like this shows, great, no problem.
okay,
Yeah.
but the thing to think about with that is that this move right here
Yeah.
puts an awful, like just say this is the
A lot more pressure on
it's a
this.
big load right here, okay? And if there are big loads right here, then what happens with your tires might be different. And if it transforms here, what happens with how the tires are arranged, that might give us a way of considering how elsewhere to transform how the tires are arranged.
Yeah,
Right?
I think
So
we should
there's-
be symmetrical in it, in the way that what we would do. Let's say we did this beam here, right? Let's say we did the volt, 2 volts and a square center, for example. And then you had something here, and then you had to put this cross style beam, and then you had more reinforcement on tires and something here. I wouldn't change it up on the other side. I would do the same thing over again. Let's not recalculate. Let's not spend time killing ourselves to do it 1,000 times over. Let's just make it like that. We can do 2 volts, but the volts on this side come like this, and then the volt kind of ends on one side and then opens up. Does it have to be this open? No, it doesn't have to be this exact span. It could end here, it could end, open like that. It doesn't have to be.
So, but the key thing I wanted to raise was that big spans will change.
Will change
and
the
transfer
dynamics.
loading.
No, I understand
Changes
that.
structurally what
I
happens.
fully understood.
Okay.
Even putting in that square portion, I understand that it requires more complication
Uh-huh.
in terms of, right, it's not just a standard Earthship in that sense.
Yeah.
But again, I think in terms of funding, marketing, image,
They're necessary.
it's
things to
worth
discuss.
more in the long run than it is like the dollars and the planning in the short run. And to me, even from your perspective, is I see it as more of an interesting project for you guys to make something that's not just taking their plans, redrawing them, and saying, okay, go for it.
Yeah.
I know you guys are going to have more interest in this, and I would like you guys, and I would like to continue working with you guys. It's not like, hey, do this for me because I couldn't get Michael Reynolds to do it.
Yeah.
I'm saying, no, do this because I think what Michael Reynolds has and what you guys can combine is
Will make it
even more interesting than what we've already seen.
Super.
I love walking into these buildings and feeling the inspiration that comes with talking about all this kind of stuff, but also realizing how possible it now really can be and is. When you walk into a house and you see a geodesic dome in the backyard and apple trees and nice wood and rammed earth, you feel like maybe you're a little less crazy than you thought you were sometimes.